jury is still out on whether it's the best way of teaching reading, says Sue Ellis from the University of Strathclyde.
There are lots of unworked through and unresearched problems about phonics that I do think England would have been wise to investigate before it went for a completely phonics line. For example, there's no research evidence at all that I can find on what happens to children who simply can't hear a sound. When you start learning to speak, you hear a word and that word for you is represented by an object. And some children are very, very slow to move past that stage. So I was interviewing a child last week and I was trying to get him to give me words that would rhyme with chair. And he had a choice between cheese, table, and hair. And I was saying to him, chair. What rhymes with chair? Is it cheese, table, hair? What rhymes with chair? Table. Because as far as he was concerned, table and chair went together, and he couldn't move past this idea of the object to actually just listen to the sound of the word. Now, for a child like that, sitting for a year in a phonics class where that's the only way into reading offered is going to be hugely, hugely problematic.
I can see that phonics can be fun, as Genevieve Draper demonstrates with her Year 1 class at Ranelagh Primary School.
So when you get your card, it's top secret, so don't show anyone, because you don't want to find any other partner but your own. So when you get your letter, have a look at it, think about what sound that letter makes, and then you're going to have to find your partner. Don't show anyone, keep it secret. We're going to stand up and try and find our partner by saying the sound of the letter. Ready? Off we go, say your sound.
So how are phonics taught at Ranelagh? Head teacher Angela Tapscott explains the practice behind the theory.
Well, what we find is that a lot of our children find it difficult just to do things in an auditory sense. They like to see things in a visual sense and also to feel them, to sort of address the kinesthetic approach to learning.
Genevieve takes a kinesthetic approach to the teaching of phonics and encourages her pupils to use their bodies to make letter shapes.
So freeze where you are. I'm going to touch you on the head and see if you can make the sound of your letter. Good girl. Good boy. Oh, this is a good one down here.
Can you tell me why the children made the shapes of the letters with their bodies?
It's just the more practice they have at the shape and the feel and the sight and the sound and anything related to the letter, the more chance there is that they'll actually understand and know about that letter and know how to use it and know what it means. We find for children, especially here, that kind of approach makes sure we cover all the bases, and it does actually give them a better understanding and a better grounding. The Year 1 class, they were sounding out letters and looking at the different sounds of the words and also relating them to something that was very real when they were relating them to pieces of fruit and using the words to describe what they were seeing and what they were thinking about.
Smells like mango, does it? Are you sure? Just one word. Can you think of one word to describe it? Sweet? Jalal, what's your word to describe it?
Spiky.
It's kind of spiky, isn't it? Mustafa, what's your word?
Yellowy.
Yellow, brilliant.
And I think that actually helped them to understand better and make them more interested, because the lesson on something as basic as phonics does need to be interesting.
What was your word? Juicy. Yum, sticky, soft and juicy. Yum, sticky, soft and juicy. Yum, sticky, soft and juicy. Yum, yum, yum.
So how and why have we got ourselves into the position of favouring one method of teaching reading, phonics, above all others, even those which promote reading real books from the very start? Its appeal might lie with its seeming simplicity, thinks Bethan Marshall.
Politicians are very keen on answers to questions. If there is a problem, they like a solution. And the thing about phonics is it seems scientific, it seems rigorous, and it seems like it has answers. And it's a package that you can give. So there are people who produce commercial packages like Ruth Miskin or the Jolly Phonics, and you can say, off the shelf, here you go, here is an answer. What they're less keen on are people like me who sort of say, well, it's a little bit fuzzy and it's a bit grey and children learn differently, don't they? If they stopped to think about it for a second and looked at their own children, they would remember that actually they learned very, very differently. But that seems all a little bit floaty and less rigorous, and that's not what they like.
Dominic Wise from Homerton College, Cambridge, concurs.
I think phonics is quick to say, the word, and it sums up actually a very complicated set of strategies and procedures that we need to teach, that we use to teach reading. And in fact, if we're a politician to stand up and say, well, actually, what I think we need is, first of all, children to be engaged in wonderful texts, and that we need to very carefully balance up the input we give on letters, sounds, words. Well, you can see that, of course, that takes too long to say. So I think there is an issue there, yes, in what's quick to say, what sounds tough and effective.
Tactfully wending his way around the fallout from the government's recent obsession with phonics is Redbridge's literacy advisor, John Hickman.
There is an inevitable political knee-jerk behind any decision like this to go full-on with phonics, simply because of the notion of raising standards, league tables. It's what governments get judged on. However, behind all that, hopefully, with people in schools and in LEAs, there's an indication that we are engaged with pupil entitlement, and all children are entitled to read, and we need to work out the best ways to help them get to that goal.
On the gate. On the wall.
Rather cheekily, the Institute of Education's reading expert, Rona Stainthorpe, takes the battle over phonics into my own real book's backyard.
Now, the whole purpose of teaching children to read is so that they can read books, lovely books, like We're Going on a Bear Hunt. Just think about the text here. We're going on a bear hunt. We're going to catch a big one. What a beautiful day. We're not scared. Mud. Thick, oozy mud. We can't go over it. We can't go under it. Now, if you can read the words, you can read this book independently. As it happens, because of the nature of this particular traditional rhyme, we get lots and lots of repetition, which is very good. Squelch, squirch, squelch, squirch. Now, you clearly got to use phonics to work those out because they're not real words, they're wonderful onomatopoeia, and the children will love saying them. Once they've finished one book by Michael Rosen, well, if you've got independent reading skills, you go to your class library and find another one, because that's what good readers do. They choose books by authors that they like. So there you are, you choose Smelly Jelly Smelly Fish. There's a man over there, and he's sitting in the sand. If you've not had phonics and you then can read, he buried himself at, and you've never come across tea time before, you'll just have to guess at it. And you might guess wrong because it's not terribly predictable. He buried himself at tea time. Now he's looking for his hand. Of course, if you've got good decoding skills, then you can see those words, you can work out what they mean, and then you can really have fun understanding this very exciting other book by Michael Rosen.
From my perspective, it doesn't matter much if my younger readers substitute their own words for tea time. Their words might be an improvement. What matters is their engagement with reading.
There's a strange view that in some way, if you teach children to read using phonics, you're going to stop their creativity. I really do think this is slightly bizarre. If you teach children phonics, you enable them to become independent word readers quickly. What you want them to do is to get the word reading over and done with so that they can really engage with the texts.
I happen to know that years ago, Rona Stainthorpe read my chocolate cake story to her sons so frequently that they knew it off by heart. And suddenly, in the middle of the night, I woke up and I thought, chocolate cake. Now, this may sound immodest, but I bet their enjoyment of my books, and other books by even more brilliant authors than I could ever be, was a driving force in motivating them to read.
Shh. Out the room, down the passage, careful not to tread on the creaky floorboard outside my mum and dad's room, because if I tread on that and wake them up, I'll be in trouble. Shh. On down the passage, into the kitchen, over to the cupboard. Oh, hey, there it is again. Yeah, I'm going to put it down just there. Just going to have a little look at it. Then I notice some little crumbly bits on the side of the cake. So I think if I take a knife, I could just tidy it up a little bit. No one would know. Put it down. Oh, yeah, there's all the nice little crumbly sticky bits. It's all going to go in there. Yeah, belly, belly, belly. It's So I think maybe I could take a whole slice of it. So I pick up the knife, and this time I'm going to make the slice through the crispy icing on the top, through the squashy icing in the middle. Psst, yes, and I got a whole slice here this time. I got a whole slice, and it's going to go in. And now I can't stop myself, so I got the knife, and I'm going. Psst, 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 psst. And I got oh no, it's gone.
I've come to have coffee with Jennifer Chu, a retired teacher who, unlike me, has complete faith in the efficacy of phonics.
Phonics is the best for beginners because we have an English alphabetic writing system, and phonics simply teaches children right at the beginning what to do with those letters, those black marks that they see on the page.
But the problem with English, surely, is that it's not regular.
Can take a letter combination, can produce several different sounds.
Right, well, that's a very old-fashioned kind of argument, and in fact it doesn't fit the modern best phonics programs that we have. They all deal with that problem. They teach the alternative sounds for letters and alternative ways of spelling sounds.
But surely that's not phonics, is it? Because don't we have to look at those letters in the context of the word, so O-U as it is in the word sound or in the word you. So in fact the children have to learn whole words anyway. In other words, it's whole word recognition, isn't it?
No, I think it's still underpinned by phonics. I mean, there is research which shows that even word recognition is underpinned by good phonics knowledge.
Well, I think we just have to agree to differ on that one, Jennifer.
Well, but I think there is evidence. And
the current political vogue for phonics is partly based on a longitudinal study conducted in Clackmannanshire. This seemed to provide the evidence that the government needed to suggest phonics was the quickest way to raise literacy standards.
The important thing to remember about Clackmannanshire is that it was set up to compare two different types of phonic teaching. If they had wanted to look at whether or not phonics teaching was better than other forms of teaching, they would have had to have controlled for a huge number of other variables, which they didn't because that wasn't the question they were asking. The Clackmannan experiment took place at a time of enormous funding for early years. It was a huge early intervention project sponsored by the Scottish Office, and every local authority in Scotland had to bid for money to implement a project.
Although it was a limited study conducted within Scotland's smallest LEA, the government seized on it as proof that phonics worked and justified the imposition of synthetic phonics on all schools.
If I say cat, who can tell me what the first sound is in cat? Cat. What's the second sound? Oh, you told me the second sound and the first sound. So if I say cat actor, can you say cat actor?